Hey, it's Jordan with TYT and TYT Network. It is Wednesday, May 11th. Very sunny New York. Hope everyone's doing okay. Last night, Bernie Sanders won convincingly in the West Virginia Democratic primary. He actually won by 16 points. The final margin was 51.4% to Hillary Clinton's 35.8%. Another victory following his Indiana upset. This is two in a row. The media yesterday covering it basically said, oh, Bernie won, but again, math is math, he has no chance, and then continue to focus on Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump. I'm going to tell you why that's incorrect, but first, Bernie won 18 delegates last night in the West Virginia primary. Hillary Clinton won 11 delegates. Since the superdelegate system, which we've spoken about before, is essentially tipping the scales, even though Bernie won by 16 percentage points, even though he won 18 actual pledged delegates to Hillary Clinton's 11, because when you're adding superdelegates, Clinton actually gets 17 total delegates. There's 8 superdelegates in West Virginia. She has the support of 6 of 8. Bernie Sanders has the support of 1. And the 8th hasn't decided who they support. So in total, Bernie's going to get 19 delegates. Hillary Clinton's going to get 17 delegates. So this is the superdelegate system. Even when a candidate wins by 16 percentage points, even when the actual voters of a state overwhelmingly support one candidate, the superdelegates don't have to honor that vote and could essentially make a 16 percentage point victory obsolete. So Bernie's only coming away with 2 extra delegates when you're including superdelegates. Now, if you look at the overall pledged delegate count, Hillary Clinton has 1,715. Bernie has 1,439. That's not including superdelegates. So he's still down quite a bit, 1,715 to 1,439. All the local media, all the national media is still including superdelegates, making it seem like Hillary Clinton is about 100 or 200 total delegates shy of winning the nomination, even though, as Cenk has pointed out, as I've pointed out, superdelegates do not actually vote till the July convention. On the victory, Bernie Sanders said, "We now have won primaries and caucuses in 19 states. Let me be as clear as I can be. We are in this campaign to win the Democratic nomination." He actually also focused on Donald Trump. He said, "It is not only in national polls where we defeat Donald Trump by bigger numbers than Secretary Clinton. It is state poll after state poll after state poll." This was another interesting thing you saw in the media yesterday. You had 3 swing state polls come out showing Hillary Clinton either losing to Donald Trump, that was in Ohio, she was down by 4 points, or basically tied. She was up 1 point in Florida and 1 point in Pennsylvania. That's within the margin of error. This is not strong numbers for a supposedly Democratic frontrunner who's the best candidate to take on Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton supporters were rambling about how the white vote was oversampled in these polls and there wasn't enough minority votes sampled. I'm not a pollster. All I know is there's 3 polls showing her either losing or tied to Donald Trump in 3 of the most critical states in the general election, particularly Ohio, which is, most observers say, is the most important swing state. No Republican president has won the presidency without winning Ohio. So she's losing in these states or barely winning, and the Democratic surrogates for her on cable news say, oh, it's 6 months out in advance. Oh, there's an undersampling of minority votes and there's an oversampling of white votes. Oh, Bernie Sanders is doing better because he hasn't been attacked. I mean, Hillary Clinton supporters have a hashtag Feel the Math. They don't really want to focus on the math when it's not beneficial to her. Putting aside whether you're a Bernie Sanders supporter or not, if you don't want Donald Trump to be president, 6 months early before an election, yeah, it's a little early, but these aren't isolated polls. Bernie Sanders has been polling better than him has been polling better than Hillary Clinton for months, and it's been ignored. When you watch CNN and these other networks, they say, oh, you know, the Bernie hasn't really been attacked. When Trump goes after him, his poll numbers will go down. I mean, I've seen on CNN them decry him as a socialist. I've seen as CNN them try to tie him to Fidel Castro. And they keep talking about Bernie hasn't really been attacked. I mean, Trump hasn't really done anything yet towards Hillary Clinton. So what are these same pundits going to say when on the debate stage, Donald Trump calls her a puppet, calls her a corporate puppet, and goes a lot further than Bernie Sanders ever did? Yes, there's a huge issue Donald Trump has with minority voters and with non-white voters, but at the end of the day, this is an outsider year, and there is a populist outrage on both sides, Democratic and Republican, against economic establishment. Politicians who are the status quo take money on one end and say they're going to go after money on the other end. Donald Trump can easily and very aggressively and probably successfully go after Hillary Clinton as the embodiment of this corrupt system. Bernie Sanders, yes, you can call him a socialist till he's blue in the face. Can't go after him on money. Can't go after him on being corrupt. And that's a big part of why Bernie Sanders is very popular with young people and independents, both critical to win a national election. So I don't blame you if you're not watching cable news. I watch it because I want to know what exactly is being said and what exactly the false sentiment is. And these Democratic pundits who are supporting Hillary Clinton and think, oh, these polls don't matter, these polls are not changing. Now it's swing states, but the overall polls have shown Bernie is the stronger candidate, and they seem to want to ignore it. Now, when actually looking at the primary, as Cenk has said, as I will say, it's a very big uphill climb for Bernie Sanders to actually become the nominee. So at this point, you know, looking ahead, the next contests are in Kentucky, which has 61 delegates, and Oregon, which has 74 delegates. There's really been very little polling in Kentucky. A recent Oregon poll actually showed Hillary Clinton at 48% and Bernie at 33%. I don't know really how many people were polled in this. It's hard to kind of find out. It's a local poll. DHM Research surveyed 901 likely Oregon voters and found Sanders at 33%, Clinton at 48%. Now, again, it's a local poll in Oregon. I don't really know how much stock to put in it, but I will say Kentucky is also, like West Virginia, has a lot of coal miners, and Hillary Clinton put her foot in her mouth by saying, I'm going to put a lot of coal miners out of business. That might play a part in Kentucky, too, in favor of Bernie Sanders. Oregon is one of the most liberal states in the country, and Bernie Sanders has his lone Senate endorsement from Senator Jeff Merkley from the state of Oregon. I think Bernie is going to do well in both of these states. We should say they're both closed primaries, so only Democrats can vote. Hillary Clinton does a lot better in closed primaries, but again, she has the coal issue in Kentucky. That's why she's gone back on the air with television ads. For a while, she wasn't actually doing any more ads in primary states, basically saying, oh, I've won the nomination and I'm going to move on to Donald Trump. Her campaign, once they saw that she wasn't polling well in several states, she's going back heavily on the air. In Kentucky, she's dispensing Bill Clinton there. So she's trying to win Kentucky, or at least not get crushed in Kentucky. Oregon, I think, is going to go to Bernie Sanders. Again, very liberal state. It's a closed primary, but it's a very, very liberal state. Now, can Bernie, if Bernie wins Kentucky, if Bernie wins Oregon, after winning Indiana, after winning West Virginia, what does that mean for the math? Again, he's down close to 300 pledged delegates, so he is not going to, unless he would have to basically win, you're talking over 65% of the remaining contests. He would have to win over 65 percentage points in all the remaining contests just to get within striking distance of her and the pledged delegates. And then you have to rely on super delegates. It's a very tough task to win 65% in closed primaries in New Jersey, where she is favored right now. So it's likely Bernie is going to put a dent in her pledged delegate lead, but he is certainly, it doesn't look like, is going to pass her or have this miracle comeback. It's really going to come down to California. So let's say Bernie wins Indiana, West Virginia, Kentucky, Oregon. There's other states, other local, there's a Puerto Rico caucus. And then you have California, New Jersey, and a bunch of other states on that second to last day. If he wins 4 of these big states going into that, again, Indiana, West Virginia, Oregon, Kentucky, And right now he's polling fairly well in California. Some polls have him down 3 or 4 points. And Bernie's campaign is up in California with a lot of ads, and he's going to be there a lot. If he wins California by a decent amount, he could really shrink that pledged delegate gap. Because again, California, biggest stack of delegates in the country, over 500. If he wins by 5 to 10 percentage points, he does crack into her delegate lead. And ultimately, this is going to come down to Bernie Sanders being down in pledged delegates and super delegates either sticking with Hillary Clinton or moving over to Bernie Sanders' side. The main reasons they would move over to Bernie Sanders' side, if she is indicted, which as it stands now, it's not likely that news of that will come out before the convention, unfortunately, or if more polls keep creeping out of her either tied or losing to Donald Trump, mixed with Bernie Sanders crushing Donald Trump, mixed with Bernie Sanders winning, let's say, 75% of the remaining contests, superdelegates will have to make a choice. And at the time of the convention, it's not 6 months before the election anymore. It's more like 4 months. So if Bernie Sanders wins the majority of the remaining states, if her poll numbers are not so great against Donald Trump, they're gonna have to explain why it is not artificially, but on paper, the candidate polling the best and the candidate who has won the majority of the remaining states, including possibly California, isn't going to be the candidate. You hear from a lot of Clinton supporters and Clinton's campaign talking about superdelegates can't defy the will of the people, and the popular vote should be honored, and whoever wins the most pledged delegates should be honored. In theory, I actually agree with that, but here's the problem. They don't seem to have a problem when superdelegates for her defy the will of the people in their states. West Virginia is a perfect example. Bernie won by 16, yet 6 out of the 8 superdelegates going for her. So they don't have a problem on the state level superseding the will of the people. It's just when it hurts her superseding the will of the people, she has a problem. So you got to stay consistent. I think superdelegates should be abolished. I do support Bernie Sanders, but if he's down by a lot of pledged delegates and she's polling better, I do think they should support the will of the overall voters. But you can't have it both ways. If Hillary Clinton truly believes that, then she should say to superdelegates for her that are coming from states that he won heavily, that they should honor the will of their people. So overall, I think this is going to come down to Bernie's going to put a dent into her pledged delegate lead. I think he's going to win Oregon. I think he might win Kentucky. I think he has a big shot at winning California. And then I think it really is going to come down to optics, not math. She's going to be up in pledged delegates fairly considerable. So at the end of the day, the superdelegates in the Democratic establishment need to decide. Do they want the candidate who is kind of doing so-so against Donald Trump in polls? Or do they want the candidate who's crushing him in polls, who's probably going to win the last remaining states, the majority of them, who's got the movement of young people, who's crushing in independence? Or do they want the establishment standard bearer and kind of throw their hands up and say, oh, the polls don't matter right now, even if it's in July? And let's not forget, Donald Trump, yes, he has huge negatives among Latinos, African Americans, but Donald Trump is a master at bullshit and marketing. Don't think that he can't soften his tone a little bit. Don't think he can't make some inroads with the Latino community, maybe even throw out an apology. I know that's a shock, but it might happen. Donald Trump is not completely out because Americans have a very short memory. And if the economy continues to kind of stagnate and have artificially good numbers of 5%, but most people don't feel it, and you have a successful businessman standing up in front of Hillary Clinton and can efficiently paint her as a puppet for Wall Street, that's not a bad candidate. Yes, the minorities are probably long gone from him, but Hillary Clinton is not doing well among white men. Hillary Clinton is not doing great among young people. Hillary Clinton is doing poorly among independents. So this is not the strongest candidate.